do you feel like that's wrong, or do you think like those top three are accurate representations of what you guys feel about video games as well? Did you guys see this story that came out, the super elections?
Yeah.
So they pretty much polled their audience. They had 254,000 people respond to the polls, and they broken the poll down, pretty much asking like, what do you like about our games? What do you want to see more of our games? And what franchises would you like to see come back? Right. So that's a pretty good sample size, and they have it broken down very, very well with 254,000 people responding. They have all sorts of franchises that need with representation in here. But the breakdown of this is amazing here. What is the one thing that we continuously hear over and over and over again about the video game space? The one thing that I always hear is it's a 50-50 split between men and women. That's the one thing we hear over and over again from the ESRB and the electronic safety, whatever it is. They throw out these stats that 50% of women play video, or that 50% of gamers are women. And I think that this Capcom Super Elections just shoves that back in everyone's face. When you look at the results here, and you scroll down, it says here are the people who voted. 82% male. 82% male here, which I think is an accurate representation of what the video game industry looks like and what gamers look like. Kay, Blabs, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel like this is accurate, or do you feel like this number should be higher and this is not accurate?
Kay, how do you feel about him just assuming our gender like that?
Excuse me, bigot. No.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think this is the most accurate thing ever. That's why I love this whole Capcom breakdown. I'm glad we're talking about it. I agree that it is probably 82% male, if not even higher. Now, every time they say that there's 50% of women playing games, I'm sorry to say, but they're talking about mobile gamers a lot of the time, too. Now, I know I'm in the gaming industry, so it might sound hypocritical. I'm saying, oh, there's not many women. There's not, though. There really isn't. It's a majority. They're taking these stats and they're inflating it with, look at these women that play Candy Crush. Yeah, they're totally gamers. And we all know at the end of the day, there's a difference between a gamer that is playing on console, playing on PC, versus these people that are playing casual games like Words with Friends, whatever, Farmville, all that stuff. This is very different. So I agree. This is completely accurate.
James, I think this is a pretty accurate representation. The 4% was interesting. The idea that here we are over here, but we'll just kind of slowly mosey on past that. But as you scroll down, it has a breakdown of the ratio, which I actually think this is pretty accurate as well. And this is online, so I don't know if many less than 10-year-olds should be online voting on Capcom games, but whatever. But the total here is almost 80% between the ages of 20 and 30. And I think this is pretty accurate as you go along. Now, I do think this is going to balance out in the next, well, maybe not balance out, but I think the 40s will increase to 15%, in the next 5, 10, 15 years as the 30-year-olds get a little bit older, right? Alex, we were talking about this. This is the breakdown of their voters here, with 82% male. And we were saying that we think this is a more accurate representation of the video game industry as opposed to the 50-50 that we're constantly being told that 50% of gamers are women. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
I think if you include mobile gaming and tablet gaming, that does go 50-50.
I agree. I think we all agree on that. But I think
I think if you look at core player base, like PC gamer, console gamer, things like that, if you subtract mobile out, then it will sort of like align more to this size. I think also too, like the type of games Capcom makes are more tailored towards men anyways. Like, sure, girls absolutely want to fuck Dante like nobody's business, 100%. But everybody who likes Dante is like, I want to be Dante. Because I always said that same shit when I was 14, right? Like like Monster Hunter. Like, I get to fight giant lizards and smash off their tails. That's, most guys want to do that. Fighting games, right? There are some trans women who are fighters. There are some like girls who are fighting games too. Like there's a guy named Hot Wheels. I think Hot Wheels passed away. Actually, he was a disabled fighting game player. But like the majority of them are going to be dudes who love a toxic shit talking environment. I think the majority of the games that you make also dictate your audience as well. So it can't just be like this is the whole industry. I think it depends like the kind of games you make and also the kind of like place you're making them or putting them out there. Like, I think that's really what it is. Like, yeah, it makes sense for Capcom because they make horror games, science fiction games, fighting games, and monster hunting games. So yeah, you're gonna have like Resident Evil. What girl doesn't want Resident Evil like Leon Kennedy to put a baby in him? Like, tell me which one doesn't.
Right.
You're not gonna find them. Right. So
Kay, do you want him to put a baby on you?
No, not really.
Oh.
There you go. There's one.
There's the one.
No, but I didn't want to disprove his point there because it might generally be
one.
true, but I'm not.
Are you more like Chris? You're more like Chris Redfield girl? Is that what it is?
I'm just like, I don't know. For me, Resident Evil is just a big jump scare game, so I'm just terrified every second. I'm not thinking about banging anyone while I'm playing that game. I'm thinking of running away from zombies.
You're more of a Virgil girl, probably. That's probably what it is.
Oh, God.
Emo in the corner.
Look, I love the Devil May Cry games. They're great, and I agree that I wanted to be Dante when I was young. That is so badass, swinging that sword.
There you go. You know, it's just it's kind of like that kind of style, right? So I think if you were a company that just made games like Barbie's Fishing Simulator or like Horse Petter, that this would look very different. But I think also too, like it all depends what kind of stuff they're looking at. If the ESRB is counting mobile and like everything else, then yeah, you could probably say it's closer to 50-50. But the thing is, statistics are really important. And that's what people don't really look at. And the ESRB can say it's 50-50 and you could say, oh, okay. And you can just take that and run with it and be wrong because it's not the actual truth when you look into it. And that's how people like abuse stats all the time. So like stats is the most important class to take in college. That's how I learned like this is bullshit. So you can't just, just like these stats, you can't just take in a vacuum.
Right. Well, they are fun to look at though. So let's continue to glance at them here. So they broke down the top 10 favorite Capcom game series by world, the overall world, and by Japan. Just based off a hunch, I'm curious, what are y'all's favorite Capcom series? And let's see if it lines up with the world's number one here. Alex, your number one Capcom game?
Devil May Cry, but you have to like take away 2. 2 doesn't exist.
Okay. James?
Phoenix Wright. I'm a Phoenix Wright simp.
Okay.
Devil May Cry.
Okay. Blabs? Any thoughts on that?
I have none.
Okay.
Oh no.
The most popular franchise that Capcom has voted on by this is actually Biohazard. Biohazard. RE, for sure. With Devil May Cry finishing third behind Mega Man. So Mega Man is still popular with today's audience, which is cool. Very, very cool. And you see, I was kind of shocked to see Street Fighter down at 7. As Street Fighter was Capcom's flagship franchise for a long time, but it's also a fairly niche, with fighting games these days. So
I think there's a few contributors to that, though, right? There's so many fighting games on the market now that Street Fighter might not stand up as much as it used to. And also, compared to the Capcom has so many good series. Like, look at how many people are fond of Mega Man still to this day, and those stats reflect it completely. I was not shocked to hear that Mega Man was that high. So if you look at those, like Resident Evil, Mega Man, Phoenix Wright being up there, like all of those are such strong series that Street Fighter is really strong too, but in comparison, I'm not shocked.
And this is why stats are important, because Dino Crisis isn't the number 3 series that people want or people like on Capcom. They just want Dino Crisis to be remade.
Exactly.
Right.
They're more looking at make the next game. Yeah.
So you can say, oh, people like Dino Crisis when they really don't. They just want the remake to happen for Dino Crisis. So they're going to pump those numbers up as much as they can to have that happen.
And they actually ask that question as well, like when we get to it. But they say, like, what's the number one game you want to come back? And people are like, Dino Crisis, Dino Crisis, Dino Crisis.
Right.
I think it's so great that they're asking that question.
Well, an even better question is this is something Kay just said. Like, what do you look for in Capcom games? And I think this is just a bigger question. What do you look for in video gameplay, right? And just video games as a whole. And the number one answer was just gameplay. Like, fun games. Unique and attractive characters, unpredictable, exciting storylines. So we're looking for games, we're looking for characters, we're looking for stories. That's what people, I think people don't understand with all this stuff that's happening in the industry, right? Like the answers are literally right here in front of you. They just want games, stories, and cool characters, and that's it. That's it. That's the number 3 things. And like make your music good, it's not that hard. We don't need to overthink video games, and I feel like that's what a lot of these developers are doing right now. They're really overthinking things, but like the answers are literally right here from Capcom, and I think this is actually a really good survey for the entire gaming industry to just look at across the way. So anyways, I don't know. Do you feel like that's wrong, or do you think like those top three are accurate representations of what you guys feel about video games as well?
That's 100% accurate. Like that's completely accurate of what people want. And guess what's not on that list? Diversity, inclusion. I want to look like me in the game. None of that is there. Gameplay, exciting story, great music. Like that's what people want. They want a good narrative. Storytelling transcends everything. We don't need to look or feel like the character to enjoy it, right? So I think every single gaming studio in the world needs to bring this in front of their team, have a meeting, and go over this and really like discuss it. This is how you fix the industry right here.
I like number 5 a lot. Depth for repeat play. I mean, how many times have we seen new games come out and nobody's replaying them because there's no replayability whatsoever? From Hogwarts Legacy to the latest Star Wars game, everyone played like the one time where they didn't even finish it and they're like moved on to another game.
You know, when you look at this, it says novel worldview, and I would guess that's the closest thing that you could potentially get to, like, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion along the way. I think I'm reaching right there, but that's the closest thing that you could potentially get to it right here. But there's so many other factors associated with
novel worldview. Could also be like the world building in the game as well.
Yeah, that's true. Like
if you look at Doom, right? The new Doom came out. And what did everybody do? They fucking came.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, holy shit, look at this Doom game.
Right.
That's what people want. They're like, we don't want cinematic trailers. We want gameplay. We want to see what the game's going to play like to determine whether or not I want to play that game. And Doom does all of those things. Like it has the music, it has the character, it has like the combos, the style. Like Doom is very much a fighting game in first person, in my opinion. And I think that's why people are so attracted to it, because there's a skill cap to it. But it's very difficult for games to do that and for developers to do that. So what they'll do is they'll take the easy way out. They'll say, okay, what can we do that's going to be simple for a lot of people to play instead of making it for a few people to play? Then you get that concept, like then you get what Dragon Age happened. And you get stuff like that. You get this like systematic churn of like the same game coming out over and over. If you notice, they all look and play the same. And there's no variables or variance to it. Unless then Baldur's Gate 3 comes out and everybody just fucking, what the fuck, you know, like these video games are back, you know, like that kind of a thing.
Well, I think it's a great, I think you're right, Kay. Every game developer in the industry should take that and say, like, here are gamers, right? This is your audience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what any of our internal data says. This is it right here. This is the people who buy your games on a day-to-day basis, and specifically target the 20 to 40-year-old gamer who has money, who is willing to spend on that game, because, you know, teenagers don't have a whole lot of expendable income. So, focus on what they want in particular, because those are the people who are going to be buying your game